without these tools, that experience would have just been something that I think would have gone into like a PTSD, where I would have been walking around, still looking over my shoulder, even though I didn't need to anymore. I would have been hyper focused on some of that last communication because it was so jarring, and I would have been stuck there. But instead, I was able to move through that because of this.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the Reflections of the Father's Heart podcast. Today, we got me and Sandi together again. We love doing this, and we love it when we get to do it together and share with you guys together. But we were just chatting here a little bit ago before we jumped on, and just talking through some stuff that's going on lately in my life, Sandi's life. And so we're going to just share some recent stuff with you, some really high level stuff just for the nature of what it is, but really want to just let you in a little bit more on, what's actually going on and what to do about it in our lives. And so, Sandi, you said one thing really interesting just a little bit ago. You said it was Sunday, last Sunday, you had invitations to go places, see friends or whatever, or do some stuff. But Sunday could have been a full day for you or a packed day for you. And you just felt like, no, I need to stay home and really connect. And I think sometimes we don't always recognize when that's necessary, or we recognize it, but we just go to all the things anyway and go do all the things and keep going. It's just one of the things I appreciate that about you. You recognize it and you actually do it, but you stayed home Sunday instead of going other places, and you really connected.
It was about a little over a week after this major experience that we'll talk about in a moment. But, my typical morning is, I do try to connect, right? I do have my breakfast and I have some time with Jesus, and I go outside and I do a prayer walk. But I think even those things for me sometimes can start to feel a little bit like a checkbox if it just becomes like the rhythm of my life. But I just knew, I could sense in my heart there was a heaviness and just a call, from Jesus to lean in more, and to lean in more to what I was feeling, and to lean in more to what I needed to process. And sometimes it's good to process with people, and it's not like I hadn't, but I knew that this was a deeper place. And I listened. I've learned that over the years, that even though I'm a people person and I love people and it's good to be with people, sometimes the Lord leads me to lonely places so that I can be with Him and that I can just lean into what's there. I think sometimes people look at me and think, well, you are in this space and you're such a heartsy person, and it just must come so naturally. But I don't think, because people know me now, you know me now, but a lot of people don't realize what I grew up in and how I grew up and how shut down I was and how I just learned to live that way. And I have to be careful sometimes, Seth, because sometimes when things go into overwhelm, my default can be shut down. My default can be shut down, which leads to distraction, which just leads to, I'm in a good looking distraction, but I'm not living, I'm not present, I'm not connected. And I need to, that's where I have to really lean in. And that's what led up to it. It was just, I could feel it. I could tell I was distracting. I could tell I wasn't present. I could feel the heaviness. And I knew if I don't turn and face this, if I don't sit with it, it's going to come out in a totally different way. And it's going to stop me from moving into places that I'm meant to move into. And I have to take this time. Because as much as I love connecting with people, they can be a great distraction because I'm such an outgoing, people connected person.
Yeah.
So that's what happened on that morning.
And you took the time, and I'd love to hear later more of what you did to really connect, because I think that's important. Like, I think it's really important that you recognized it, you listened, you engaged, but what you did is also important, the practical stuff. But will you just talk us through too a little bit? Like, I think one of the things I said when we were chatting before was like, I really like one of the things I've sort of lived by the last about 15, 16 years is this phrase, what feeds me feeds them. So I really like talking about like, oh, this is what is happening right now. This is what's going on right now. This is what's feeding me right now. So I said that in just us deciding what we were going to share today and all of that. But you've had something happen recently, go
Yeah.
on recently, that some people might just, brush it off and keep going and not recognize what's going on in there and not take the time to engage. But obviously you did that. And yeah, can you just walk us through
Mhm.
what's happening right now? Because we're kind of talking about like what's feeding Sandy right now. We're going to talk about it so it can feed other people and help other people, because people are going through all kinds of stuff. But yeah, so that was kind of my heart in this, was like, this is what you're going through. This is
Yeah.
what's happening. This is what you're doing about it. Instead of talking about something from like a long time ago, let's just talk about what's happening right now. So yeah, will you share high level,
Mhm.
what what was it that kind of got you in that place where you were like, I need to not go out, I need to stay home and check in with myself and engage here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had shared, Seth, on another podcast, kind of the story of my ex-boyfriend and, this person who I thought he's a worship leader and, he's this guy that goes to church. And then this whole nightmare that ensued after breaking up with somebody I dated for almost 4 years. And so, if you haven't listened to that one, it's how God redeemed my nightmare is the name of the podcast, because it ended up becoming a situation where he stalked me, and I eventually had to get a restraining order, and it took a lot to get to that point. And then he hired an attorney, and then it was a year in court just to get a restraining order. So, if you can imagine, it was very, very stressful. I have such a heart for people that have to be in any kind of court experience because it's so daunting. And so I had just come out of that whole thing. There'd been negotiations on legal fees. And then in January of this year, somebody that I knew who was a little bit involved in that situation and for a little bit of time was helping me a bit. And then it became very clear just was unable to help. But somebody that I knew, and even though we weren't like best friends, but I definitely, she held a special place in my heart, and I thought of her as a friend, and she thought of me as a friend, and I knew she loved God. And in January, she basically, this person had a break, some kind of psychosis, some kind of psychotic break, and in that, started to target me in these kind of text communications, and they were very daunting. It was not her. I realized that after a couple rounds, like, this isn't her. This isn't the person I know and have known and knew her through somebody else who knew her better. But like, this isn't her. But if you can imagine, on the heels of being stalked, to now be getting these communications from someone that were targeted, dark, it was like a demon was speaking and coming against things of my character, things that nobody would ever say about me, even coming against my podcast, saying even deeper things that would almost feel like life threatening. And I was so shocked and stunned. And a part of me in that time just shut down. Like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't, I can't deal with this, but
Yeah,
it did
you had just
stop.
come out of a bunch
Mhm.
of stuff like this not that long before, and now it's sort of showing up again.
And it was surprising because it was not what I would have ever expected from this person, and that's exactly right. I just, in my heart, was like, "I cannot go through this again." And when I did finally bring it to somebody's attention that I knew probably would have more information, they were able to help me see that it wasn't just me. There were some other people being targeted. There was help supposedly on the way, and, there were people intervening in all of this. And so I just thought, "Okay, good. I don't have to take legal action. I can just block the communications." This other person kind of kept me in the loop, right? Like, this is what's happening. And I was praying very much for this person, because it was very evident that something was very, very wrong. And keep in mind, Seth, even though I didn't know her really, really well, I had known her for several years. So, I'd been outdoors with her. I knew a bit of her life, and I have some other moments with her that were really good moments. And so, just under 2 weeks ago, I got the news. So the law enforcement didn't intervene in the way that I thought they should have. I think many of us were hoping they would intervene more. They did intervene some, but not fully. And so, just a couple weeks ago, she was found unalived, with a pet of hers that was very near and dear to her heart, a few hours away. And so she was discovered. And so I got the call that she had taken her life and taken the life of this pet when I was in the middle of leading like a certification training for grief recovery. So I get this call. The person is obviously very distressed who's calling me. And I just felt like this gut check. Like I was shocked. I was stunned. I was devastated. I was angry. And then I called somebody that I knew could kind of process with me for a few minutes, who I knew would be available, because I was like, I have to go back in and lead this training. And then I did kind of clear it like high level, kind of how I'm doing now with the group that I was training, just because I want to be authentic. But it was, I can't even tell you, Seth, the conflicting feelings, because a part of me also felt like, like I think many of us, could I have done more? Were there signs I could have seen earlier? Should I have, I was interceding in prayer. Could I have interceded more? What else could I have done? There was that piece.
Yeah.
There's also just the devastation of, this is a person who loved God and was well established in their life. And so it was really painful to think that this was the end of their life here. And just thinking about people they had touched and what those people were going through. So and the way that it all happened, I was waking up with it every single day. Like every day I would wake up with like just this heaviness. And then I did go back, and there was a group of text messages I hadn't read. And I did go back and I had read some of those as I was sharing with somebody, and realized like some of the stuff that she had communicated in those last moments. And I say she very lightly, because loosely, because it wasn't her. Like that, I'm telling you, that's not something she would have ever said. But it was very much like, if I had seen that before, I would have had to go to authorities. Like it was very much like targeted against my life, basically. And so I think that also brought up a lot for me too. Like it was just the thought that somebody would ever say that, even though it really wasn't her, it was still coming from her. That was really challenging.
Yeah. So just to reiterate so it wasn't that long ago, you had all this court stuff, all this really hard stuff with an ex, scary stuff, not good. That finally comes to a close after a really long struggle, lots of emotions. And then all of a sudden it starts happening a different way, but still like scary for you, really scary for you, really concerning for you, other people. And yeah, and it's not someone you knew super great. It wasn't like your best friend, but it was a person in your life who all of a sudden like turned on you and is coming at you, and you're like, this is not the person that I know. This is not who she is. So there is a level of probably like, this isn't her. This isn't the lady I know. So you can somewhat brush it off a little bit. But then all of a sudden the news hits you. Plus you're in the middle of training a bunch of people to be grief recovery specialists and help, and you find out she's no longer alive, and right in the middle of a training, like, oh my gosh, wild. But this is, I think you and I talked about this, or I talked with someone about this not that long ago, where a lot of times I was talking to someone in the context of church life, right? Like you and I have talked about this not that long ago, just some of the stuff that's happening in the charismatic church right now and the struggle in the church. And like the best thing for people to do when stuff hits is not go to the next thing, and take the time necessary, engage the process in a healthy way, like clear out your heart, deal with what's going on in your heart. But the person I was talking to, I said, the hardest thing in church life is, because we had stuff like this happen where it's like, oh, someone blew their life up. Someone made really bad decisions. Someone made decisions that have affected all of us. And the best thing for us to do would be to take a few days off or a few weeks off and like really process all of this. But it's so hard in church life because Sunday morning's coming. And for us, when I was a children's pastor, it was like, Sunday morning's coming. There's going to be several hundred kids here on Sunday, and we need to be there for them. And so it was this really hard tension of, we know the best thing to do would be to stop and like slow down and take time and engage, but we kind of need to try to do that on the run because Sunday's coming, and then Wednesday's coming, and then Sunday's coming. All of that to say, you are getting hit with all this, and I think that's oftentimes our tendency is, for you, you get the phone call, you're like probably shocked. Oh my gosh. The tendency is just like, well, I have to finish the training. So I need to call someone for 5 minutes and just share real fast. But the temptation, I think, is to just go, oh, I need to finish this training. So I'm going to train them. I'm going to get this all done. I'm going to keep going. And then the next thing shows up, and the next thing shows up, and the next thing shows up. And before we know it, it's like years later, and we're carrying all this stuff that we could have, we just never dealt with. And you didn't. You called your friend, you talked for a few minutes, you finished the training, but then Sunday you took the time. I said all that to say, I think a lot of times, to go back to the very beginning, a lot of times we don't recognize when our hearts are kind of going like, hey, I need some attention right now. Hey, I need you to slow down right now. Hey, I know you got invitations. I know you got things to do. I know you got important stuff, but I'm also important and I need a little bit of attention, and you did that. But yeah, I think for anyone that's listening is like, okay, you hear Sandy's story. Like I hear Sandy's story, I'm like, dude, I know what you just came out of not that long ago. Then this happens, and you have a lot of stuff going on in life that needs your attention as well. But you took the time you needed to really do something about it, and bring some healing here and clear what's going on in your heart. But I said all that to say, I guess I don't think everyone does that. I don't think everyone recognizes that. I think sometimes we just get caught up in what's next, what we have to do, what we have to show up for. We don't give ourselves permission to say, no, I need to slow down. I need to stop. I need to be with my heart here and with God here. And so I just think that's a really important thing in this, is like, you had things you had to do and you need to do, but you took this time. You can't, in other words, what I would say is like, you probably couldn't afford to not do what you did and stop and take some time. But most people think they can afford it. And so they just keep going thing to thing. They just try to keep moving on, and it usually doesn't help very much, if not make things really bad.
Well, and I think too, Seth, in this situation, it's really easy to go to these kind of what we would call like an intellectual truth, right? Like, she's no longer suffering. She didn't hurt anyone else. She's in a better place. She's not hurting anymore. And those things may well be true. I mean, those may be very well true things, whether they're spiritual truths or intellectual truths. And I think it's easy to do that, but miss what's really happening in the heart, because the heart doesn't go, oh, that's true, therefore I don't feel. The heart doesn't do that. And I think for me, the other piece, what I'm very clear on and what I'm really sensitive to, is a lot of my connection to the Holy Spirit is driven from my heart. The Holy Spirit speaks to my heart, connects to my heart. And if my heart isn't attended to, it really can affect my relationship with God. It can affect my relationship with others. And I think it's also easy because, like I said, I knew her. I'd been around her. I had been around her, and there was some good moments I'd had with her. So this wasn't like somebody I didn't know, but like you said, it wasn't my best friend. It would have been also easy to be like, well, wasn't my best friend. So, I don't have it as bad as this other person who's even more deeply affected than me. Like, it's so easy to do those things, but none of that changes the fact that I was very deeply affected on many levels. Aside from just knowing her and that I knew her and had a connection and had memories with her, it was also, like you said, coming off of what I had come off of with my ex, and the things that were said, even though I knew it wasn't her, they were still coming from her. Like, all of that had impact. And so it is really easy in those moments to just be like, well, life needs to move on. And like you said, and can give a lot of reasons why it's not as big a deal for me, or I should just keep moving, or I should be like, well, at least this, but it doesn't change the reality of my heart.
Yeah.
And I knew if I didn't address it, I just, something inside was like, if you don't, this is going to end up being a pretty big rock in your backpack, and it's going to continue to affect you. Because what I didn't realize, Seth, is that after the first round of things, if I was out somewhere, I would be looking over my shoulder. I would look over my shoulder. I would just be really aware. And I didn't even realize how much I was living that way until this happened. Like, I didn't realize that, yeah, it was affecting me like a lot. And so I
Mhm.
think you're absolutely right. It's so easy to just run over things or find a reason why somebody is affected more. But oh man, I was affected.
Yeah, or it's so easy to not notice, like, wow, I am looking over my shoulder I'm on guard all the
Mhm.
time. I'm on defense all the time. I'm going out in public and scanning. And I think sometimes that's important, like to just pay attention to your surroundings and like make sure you're paying attention. But there's a difference between like I'm paying attention, I'm looking around, I'm aware of what's taking place around me, and oh, I'm looking over my shoulder, oh, I'm and sometimes that stuff becomes our normal so quickly. It's like you said, you didn't even notice it had happened. You didn't even notice that you're on guard all the time, beyond just paying attention. You're on guard all the time. You didn't see it till you saw it. And I think sometimes that we don't notice that that stuff happens until sometimes people don't even notice. They just live the rest of their life on guard. Something could jump out at any time. Something could take place at any time. And they don't even see it. And you didn't even see it at first.
Mm-mm.
But like that's not the normal we want to live with. We do not want to let that become our everyday life and let it go on for too long. And you caught it, which is good.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I had said to you when we got on and we were chatting, and this is kind of where we're, I think, going toward, is I said, I am so grateful for the tools of grief recovery. Like, I was just thinking about it just now. So at this, about this time, almost there, like June of 2006. So 20 years ago, I did grief recovery for the first time, 20
Wow.
years ago. And I went through the outreach program, and it was so life-changing for me, and I kept using the tools. And then 2010 is when I got certified in the work. And as you know, I've just gone through it and done amazing
Numerous
things, and
times. Yeah.
yeah, God has just done so much. But and I've helped countless people through grief recovery in other ways, but I utilize these tools. In my heart, these are God given tools, because it allowed me to walk back through this relationship, not just the horrible thing that just happened, but like to walk through this relationship, to go back to the first time I met this person, which was several years ago. And there were all these moments, I have these great moments and these great memories. And I even remember I had gone over to her house, and it was kind of in the middle of all the court stuff. I had to pick something up, and she had just really kindly spoke over me about my future, and who I would marry. And it was just like I took it in my heart. I remember leaving, like taking that in my heart. But of course, because of everything that happened there toward the end, I hadn't even thought about that. Like that was gone. But using these tools, I was able to walk back through that, and to get emotionally complete with what was incomplete, to really be able to express things that I otherwise would never have the chance to express with these tools, that really unloaded things out of my heart. And on the other side, I was able to be in this place of great love, great compassion, be able to even see the spiritual battle in it. But most importantly, I was also able to carry that, what she spoke to me, in my heart. Like I was able to grab that good for real without it being clouded with all the other stuff, and go, no, this is who she really is. This is the person that I knew. This is her. She spoke that beautiful thing over me, and I can see her face and where she was, and I can see all those things. But without these tools, that experience would have just been something that I think would have gone into like a PTSD, where I would have been walking around, still looking over my shoulder, even though I didn't need to anymore. I would have been hyper focused on some of that last communication because it was so jarring, and I would have been stuck there. But instead, I was able to move through that because of this. And now I have these other pieces that I would rather prefer to hold on to. And that's why for me, that time, Seth, wasn't just, yes, I'm taking time and I'm processing, but I actually have tools that I can use that are biblical tools that anybody could grab, that met me in my heart, where all of it could come. Like, I had feelings about the dog. Like, that was like, I had the room for all of that.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful and it was powerful to be that honest. And that's why I came on with you today. And I told Seth about the whole thing. He's like, what? Oh my gosh. But honestly, I was able to say, I'm so grateful for these tools. These are
Mhm.
life-changing tools. These are lifelong tools. And it allowed me to move through something that would have otherwise caused me to be really stuck.
Yeah. Sandy, one thing we have shared a lot doing grief recovery, probably we've shared it a lot on the podcast. You've probably shared it 100 times, but like, people are supposed to be emotional processing plants where we process the stuff that comes. But most people have become storage units where we store these up. And I just learned this the other day, which was so profound for me. It was, we only store things that we resist. So if
Mm,
we resist, you could have just resisted taking the time. You could have resisted the feelings that your heart was having and been like, well, at least she's in a better place. At least she's good. The intellectual stuff. The intellectual stuff usually causes you to resist what's actually taking place. But that's when we store it, is we resist. And instead of resisting and storing, you allowed the whole thing, the whole relationship, to be processed out in front of you with these tools. And I love it. You were like, you, to put it in different language, what you said, it was like, oh, you recognize, like, I'm going to turn into a storage unit. And this storage unit is going to like affect how I live my everyday life.
yeah.
Looking over it's going to affect me if I don't open this door and allow this and bring completion to this and use the tools that I have, use what I know. I mean, I think it's so interesting too. It's like, everybody I know who's done grief recovery, like, they do it, they get certified, and then it's like they get all the stuff they're going to need so that when they need it, they have it. And you're
Mm.
like, oh, fortunately, I know exactly what to do with this, to not store it, not resist it, not avoid it, but to allow it to be processed and to find completion. And yeah, I love that. Yeah, so you worked through the whole entire relationship and then get stuck on the last stuff, the last interactions, the last text messages, the last interactions at all. Like, you didn't get stuck there. You got to see the whole thing and process it all out. I love that. I think that's something that's really important for us. I know it's important for Sandy. I know it's important for me. It's important for us on this podcast, is like, this whole thing, if you don't slow down and engage when you recognize your heart's there. Okay, what's the danger? The danger is you become a storage unit. The danger is it affects your life. You start looking over your shoulder. It changes how you interact with the world. Like, that's huge for us, to help people not become emotional storage units, but to process the stuff out, to see it in its fullness, to bring completion to it. That's our heart. And I think that's the whole theme of this, is like, we all have stuff like this. We all have stuff like this. It's like, it hits us out of nowhere. It's somebody that we know. It's somebody that's an acquaintance, but kind of a friend, more than an acquaintance, but not a best friend. And stuff's going on in their life. And a lot of times we just keep on going with our lives because we can. And then we don't realize we're storing stuff up and it's starting to affect us. And our heart in here is that none of us would do that. None of us would become that. We would find the tools that we need. We would recognize when we need them. We would stop, slow down, take the time, process them out, so that we can go on being free and being alive, not just functioning with all this stuff stored up inside. So,
Well, and what I love about this too, Seth, is, one of the things I talk about in the trainings is that when we become these storage units, we become so self-protective, and sometimes it shows up as anger or humor, or we're isolating physically or emotionally. And what ends up happening is we're separated from the things that really matter the most. It's when you're in self-protection, you're not in healthy boundaries, because healthy boundaries is like, hey, the good's coming in, the bad's out. But in self-protection, everything's out. So there's no connection. and I miss out on life and the things that matter. And, it was really interesting because I had that happen on Sunday. And then this week, I guess I'm in the space of like, the Lord is like, we're getting it all out. Um, the Lord said to me, there's an aspect with your parents that you just haven't allowed yourself to fully see because it's painful. It's the levels of neglect are so painful, and the things that you were given over to are so painful for you that you haven't allowed yourself to fully go all the way there, and I need you to. And I had just done a little video, I haven't even posted it yet, that was like, you can't heal what you don't admit, because who was I speaking to? Probably myself. But it was, again, I talked to God about that, and then I used these tools again. And it was like an add-on, like it's an add-on tool, but it was like walking through, like, okay, I have to fully go all the way in, that this is what I was given over to. And that is the reality of my heart. And if I don't admit that fully, then I can't release it. And so that's also what ended up happening. And so I just say all that to say, I'm 20 years in using these tools. And I really truly believe for me and for many, many others, when you learn these tools, they are so invaluable for your relationship with God, for your relationship with yourself, your relationship with others, your children, your spouse, your boss, people that you interact with. Like, it keeps your heart soft. It keeps you in connection. It helps you to be in connection with the right people. There's such a beauty in it. And I've been doing this for so long. And yet I was so amazed of like, wow, I get to really hold these special pieces near and dear to my heart. It's not like I'm throwing everything away, but it's like I do get to keep the fondness. I do. And I get to release the things that were harmful to me and were not really her. And that even feels honoring of her as well.
Wow.
Like, I think there's just beauty in that. And I wouldn't have been able to do that if I wasn't able to walk through this. Because here's the thing, Seth, there's the thing that happens. This is what Cole often says, the loss, right? The thing that happens. Maybe somebody did die, or maybe it's, I went through a breakup, or I quit my job, or I lost my job, or we moved, right? There's the thing that happens. And that's often where people focus. Oh my gosh,
The event.
check their
Yeah.
life, this event. But the truth is that event comes with a host of things that are often emotionally incomplete. It's the relationship in its entirety, not just the event. And that's what happened for me in this. It was like there was the event, but then what did my mind start to do? I wish I had done this differently. I wish this was better. I wish I had more of this. I wish I would have said, like, that's what we automatically do. Our heart and our mind starts to review the relationship, and we start to look for things that we wish were better, different, or more. That's exactly what I did. And that's when I was like, I've got to use these tools so that I can have that clarity, and so that I can hold this in honor.
Yeah.
And I do. I think these tools they're God-given tools. And when you learn them and you use them, they continue to change your life and to bring you into a deeper connection with God and others.
Yeah. Sandy, speaking of tools and learning them, I'll just switch gears here. There's people that watch this and listen to this, and it's like, man, I need these tools. I need these. I got stuff going on. I'm storing stuff up. I need these tools. And we have a 2.5 day intensive coming up that you and I are doing together. And we've already filmed the first half day, and it's available, and it will begin to teach you some of this. Obviously, it's 2.5 days solid. It's really intense. So it's not everything, but it definitely helps put context into what you may be experiencing, what's going on: storage unit, processing plant, backpack, boulders, rocks, pebbles, emotional baggage, emotional weight, completion, incomplete. We've already filmed the first half a day, and we have that available for anyone who wants to watch that. So I don't know, Sandy, the best way for that is maybe they just comment here on YouTube or on the podcast, wherever they're listening. They can comment. We could send that to them. But the 2.5 days is really important, because that's where we get into what do you actually do with this? Not just how do I discover what's actually going on, but how do I complete what's been going on? And how do I bring completion to that? And the coolest thing is, we decided, normally we charge $997 for a 2.5 day intensive. And we're doing this. It's a sliding scale, but it starts at $100 and people can join for $100. So if you're listening, watching, and you're like, okay, I got stuff going on totally different than Sandi, or who knows what it could be, but some of that's ringing true to you. Your heart's been calling for a long time, going, hey, I need a little bit of attention. And maybe you just been focused on what you have to do and keep going in and showing up for, and haven't been able to give it the time. The 2.5 days is a great place to give it the time and to go, all right, I'm going to set this time aside. I'm going to engage with this. I'm going to learn these tools. I'm going to walk through this process to bring completion to some of this, so it's not affecting my life anymore. Yeah, I know, Sandi, I know you're excited about the 2.5 day. Every time we do these, they're amazing. People's lives get changed. We get rocked from just being involved in people's lives at this level is so profound for us. And I love it. It's not the funnest thing in the world, but it's also really amazing. It's coming up soon. May 2nd and 3rd, whenever you watch this, I don't know when that is, but May 2nd and 3rd, 2026, we are doing the 2 days of the 2.5 day intensive, but the first half a day is already available, and we'll just send it to you. You can watch it. You can begin to get some of these tools. You can begin to set aside time and engage with your heart and not just keep going and avoiding or storing. You can actually begin that. And so, yeah, I love it. Sandi, I love that you listened. I love that you said no. You set a boundary. No, I can't go out. I need to be with myself right now. And I know exactly what to do. You have the tools, you use them. And so now we want to help other people have these tools. So whatever's going on in there, sitting in there, storing up in there, you know exactly what to do with it. So your heart is
Totally.
free.
Yeah, Seth, interestingly enough, that 2.5 day is also, as you know, it's a part of the certification training. And there was one person on there who, after doing the personal work, the exact thing that we're going to take people through, came on and said, and we're doing this online, you all, so you can join from anywhere, and this was online, and came on after the personal work and said, I have woken up every day for a year and a half with a headache. Bad. I've gone to doctor after doctor. They can't tell me the root of it. So I don't want to just randomly take medication. I want to understand what's going on. For the first time in a year and a half, I woke up with no headache. That was one person. Another person came on and said, I woke up this morning and I fixed myself some food and I was eating breakfast, and my son came in and said, what are you doing? And she said, I'm doing what you do in the morning. I'm eating breakfast. And her son said, are you okay? And she said, and then I realized I never eat breakfast because I wake up every morning and my stomach hurts. So the only thing I'll do is have coffee. I don't eat. I can't because I'm nauseous every morning. And this was the first morning that I can remember eating breakfast. This is just from using these tools. So this is very transformative and very worth it. And I have story after story after story like that. And Seth has so many too. But this is one to really engage with because of the sliding scale that we're doing. And, I don't mind shouting it from the rooftops because, again, just even what I got to do, just this past Sunday, and I just engaged with the tools and it just happened. I was like, thank you, Lord, that you have given me these tools, because, the scriptures say that we work out our salvation with fear and trembling. And it's like, there is a part that we are responsible for, right? There's a part that only God can do, but there's a part that only we can do. And our emotional space is our side of the street. And unfortunately, the enemy has come against the heart and come against the understanding and the knowledge of what it really means to process our emotions and what it really means to grieve things of any kind. And so in his infinite wisdom, the Lord has given us tools to help us navigate our side of the street, to really live out the scriptures and be able to love the Lord our God with all of our heart. And so that's what these tools are. I think sometimes, Seth, people are sitting back waiting for God to come in and take something that he's actually commissioned them to do, right? We co-labor, which means there is a part that I need to do.
Yeah.
And the emotional space is often it's my part.
Yeah.
And so these tools help me to live out my part in a way that is healthy and transformative, because it's applying principles that are straight from the Bible, but again, in a way that anybody can grab them. So it's amazing.
Yeah, I love it, Sandi. You said work out. your own salvation with fear and trembling. So it's not work for your salvation. That was God's part. That was Jesus' part. He worked for our salvation. Now we're just working it out so it's affecting every part of our life. And these are the things that need to be dealt with so that that salvation that he purchased, that he gave us, is flowing freely everywhere. And that's what you did. And I love it. So yeah, here we go. We're May 2nd and 3rd. We're going to pass out the tools, walk you through. We're not just going to tell you about them. We're going to walk you through them. You're going to actually go through and use this on a relationship. And the impact of doing this work is priceless, for sure.
For sure. It really is. It's priceless, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I have so much gratitude that God led me to these tools 20 years ago, because I really don't know where I would be in my journey. Obviously, I got the best gift, which was salvation. But to your point, being able to work it out, which means I get to live a very different life. He gave me this so that I'm able to do that. And I just love that we get to give it to others. So
me too.
It's been awesome.
Yeah. Well, Sandi, thank you for sharing. And I appreciate it. I like it because it's like what's feeding you is now feeding us. And you know what to do. You did it. Yeah, I appreciate that you are willing to share and talk about this stuff as it's happening in real time. And I think probably everyone who listens and watches does too, appreciates just that. So guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I think more people need to engage with this because of how important it is and how much it matters. Obviously it matters because out of the heart flows all the issues of life. And so at some level, every issue that we're having is something going on in our heart. And so for the people who listen, you're already on that journey, and we're just inviting you deeper. We're just inviting you deeper and more. And so thank you guys. And Sandi, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Seth. Thank you so much. And bye, everyone. Thank you for listening.
Bye.